One of the things that I love about writing for young people and meeting young people, especially young writers like many of you are in this room, is that you are linguistic geniuses. What you do with language is so vibrant and alive and colorful. So when I was your age and we used to greet each other, we'd say, "What's up?" Some slang still sticks, right? So when you greet your friends nowadays, what do you say? What is your unique way of saying hello? I see a hand here. Yes. Because I would love for you to shout out, but then I won't hear anything. So,
we say yo.
Yo sticks. Yo has been around for a long time. Yes?
Say, hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up? What's up has been around for a long time. But is there anything particular to your generation? What's poppin'? That's unique to your generation. Okay. What's cracking? What's poppin'? I've heard that one. Okay. When I was coming up, and this is another one that stuck a little bit, although it's not as popular, we would call our friends homies, homeboys, homegirls. What do you call your friends now? Can I get one hand up just so I can hear something? Yes. Sis, that's been around for a while. Yes? I like that. I like that you guys are calling each other bro and sis. Okay? Now, when you really love something, like I heard, like it's lit, but what else do you say when you really love something?
Dripping.
Dripping? That's the first time I'm hearing that. That's the first time I'm hearing that. He's lying, so give me a true one then. Give me an honest one. Answer. Jelly? Okay. Valid. I like that one. Valid. I like that. Okay, it's valid. All right. So we used to say things were deaf, things were crush. I like valid. I like that. See, it's inspiring. And when you don't, what was that? A John? Okay. All right. And my understanding is that, I could be wrong, my understanding is that that's something that started in Philly and is just kind of now catching, traction all across the country to say something is a John. Like when we used to love a song, we'd be like, so you say like, that's my John? Or am I saying that wrong?
No, John is like a pretty good.
Okay. Because when we used to like a song, we used to like, that's the joint, that's my joint. So what do you guys say? Yeah, but now you say John. But I'm saying, do you say it that way? Like, that's my John?
Like that's my cultural.
Okay, all right. Okay. So thank you so much for sharing, your slang and your lingo, your inventiveness, because it's inspiring to me. So thank you for that. Let me tell you a little bit more about me, because I do feel that I bring a lot of who I am to my writing. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit, I'm going to show you what this website is about. And then I'm going to give you a writing exercise so you can continue on with your own writing and prepare to write your own books. Because everybody in here is going to write a book, right? No. We'll see. I'm going to ask again at the end. Okay. So a little bit about me. I was born, raised, and still live in the Bronx. And anybody from the Bronx? Anybody goes to the school? That's my two girls from Twills. Hi. Because I know you're from Brooklyn, right? And one of the characters in Show and Prove is originally from Brooklyn, and he moves to the South Bronx. And for those of you who are not there yet, I'm not going to tell you the reason why that happened. I am Puerto Rican and Dominican. Right? I have been Puerto Rican and Dominican long before it was a thing. Now I meet a lot of young people who are both, but when I was coming up, there weren't a lot of people who were Puerto Rican and Dominican. I also identify as black. I'm Afro-Latina. I identify as a black woman. Now, I have been reading since I was about 3, and I've been writing since I was about 8. And I have a confession for you. The first full-length novel that I wrote in the 6th grade. It was called Poochie and the Guys Down the Street. And it was about a girl who was a tomboy, but was starting, and she was on a softball team, and she was starting to have a crush on one of the guys on the team, and so she was going through that phase where she's like, I still love being on the team, but I don't want to be looked at one of the guys anymore, right? Now, my confession is that in my book, even though it was set in the Bronx, all my characters were white. Why do you think that was? Why do you think that was? Because at the time it was only acceptable to have white characters? Why do you think?
I think because most of the books that you probably read around your age, they mostly had white characters, so you probably didn't know how to bring African American and Latino characters into it.
That's pretty much it. So I read voraciously, and some of the first people that got me really reading were Judy Blume and Marilyn Sachs, and I particularly liked Marilyn Sachs because her stories were set in the Bronx, but her characters were white because that was where in the neighborhood that her stories were set in, they were still predominantly white communities. And I had gotten the message on some kind of instinctual level that if I wanted to be a writer, I had to write white. And then around the time that I was about 11 or 12, I was at the library and I discovered the work of Walter Dean Myers. And he was writing. How many of you have read Walter Dean Myers? Yes. Okay, wonderful. His work still stands. And when I discovered his work and I saw that he was writing about African American kids in Harlem, I realized I can write true to my life and still be a writer, because that wasn't the message that I had gotten. And I still love Judy Blume and I still love Marilyn Sachs, and I read writers of all races, but that was really powerful for me to be able to see myself in a book. And that's when I found my voice, because I was keeping it real. That's when my writing took a whole other level. So my next book after that starred everybody on my block. It was called The Greatest Block. And it was in the Bronx. I'm just kidding. Those are the Brooklyn folks. And it made me kind of popular because everybody wanted to see what I was writing about them in the book. They wanted to know if I named them, and they would trade pages on the street and who's got the next chapter and when you're going to finish it. And the thing that was really funny about that is that I was writing people the way they really are. And so I thought that sometimes I would get in trouble with maybe somebody on the block because of the way I depicted them in the book. But they loved it. So like, yeah, Jason talks like that. Jason wasn't mad that I was saying certain things about him because I was representing him honestly. So if there's anything that you take away from this when you're doing your own writing, is to be honest and true. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Now, how far are you into the book? Don't spoilers, like maybe pages. How many pages you in?
100.
Okay, you're getting in there. You're getting there. And we used to actually sing that song. Maybe later you could talk me into singing it for you. But we used to actually sing that. So Show and Prove, as you know, is set in the summer of '83. It's set in the South Bronx. I was a little younger than the characters that you're reading at the time, and I attended a summer camp in the South Bronx, and I just knew instinctually, and I started writing then. I started keeping in my diary some of the funny stories of the things that would happen in camp, and because I just knew that we were in a magical time. Now, if you hear a lot about the 80s in the Bronx, you don't hear about it being a magical time. You hear about it being a really, really difficult time. You hear about the Bronx is burning, you hear about the poverty, you hear about AIDS, you hear about crack, but yet it was under those really difficult social circumstances that hip-hop was born. So young people like yourselves who had nothing created this thing that is today a global culture and is a global industry. And these were just kids who had nothing but the streets. When they wanted to dance in the streets, they had to stick their boom boxes into the lampposts to get electricity. So all they had was their bodies and their creativity. And from that came this thing that you're still listening to 40 years later. So what you're seeing right here is a website that I created to go along with the book. It is a cultural database and dictionary. Now, how many of you have, because the book is set in 83, and I'm trying to be true to the language and I'm trying to be true to the times, come across a term or a concept that you're not familiar with? Okay, so that's why I created this database. This database has about almost 350 terms and concepts and sayings and people and events. So if you come across something that you're not familiar with, you can go to showimprove.info, enter the term, and it'll give you a definition, maybe some pictures, maybe links to more information, and even some videos. So I'm going to read you a little piece and then show you a term that is in the database center. So let's say you're on 103, and that's the scene where Smiles is talking to QC in the storefront, and he's telling him how he inspired him to stand up to something that was going on in his classroom that he was uncomfortable about. Last semester, we were learning about the Kennedy assassination and got to talking about conspiracy theories. I remember you telling the homies about the Tuskegee experiment when you used to build at Pulaski Park. Damn, I forgot that might be a sore spot for QC. He would hold parliaments there all the time until Junior threatened to beat Q down if he didn't take his preaching ass somewhere else. Booby and some other barbarians were getting hyped about Q's teaching, and I guess Junior saw that as a threat to his business. When QC doesn't respond to my mention of his exile from the park, I continue. I asked my teacher whether, if something like the Tuskegee experiment could happen, is it far-fetched to believe that U.S. government didn't have a role in this crack explosion, like you said? And before I know it, I add A's. So let's say you're reading this, and you don't know what the Tuskegee experiment is. So you can go into the database, and I have it set up so that you don't have to have the term perfect. It'll auto-populate to make it easier for you to find. You click on that. And there's a little... Okay, can someone read that for me? Someone who's sitting up here?
Tuskegee experiment. An experiment conducted by the U.S. Public Health Service from 1932 to 1972, in which enrolled several hundred black men who had syphilis yet failed to treat it. Not only did some of the men die from the disease, some infected their wives and passed it on to their children. The experiment is a blemish on American history because a cure for syphilis had become available in the 1940s.
So then you could click on this and find out some more about it. You can click on it, get the timeline. And there are some videos here. This one's a documentary about the Tuskegee experiment. And this is actually a movie, a fictional movie based on the Tuskegee experiment. So if you put a term in, you'll find pictures and videos and other timelines. If you put in a recording artist, I have a little something extra for you. If there's a couple of mentions of recording artists in the book. So not only will you get a little bit about the recording artist, but you'll also get two other links. One is from the Who Sample database. So you can find out what other artists, current artists, and artists that came after that person's heyday, have sampled them. So you might find that Bruno Mars sampled someone mentioned in this book. And then the other link that you'll get for recording artists is something called the Music Bloodline. So when you click on an artist's music bloodline, you'll find the artists that influenced them, so who they were inspired by and shaped their music, and you'll also find the people that they inspired. So let's put in Michael Jackson.
Yay.
You could go right to the database. You have to bear with me because it might take a while. And when it came to Michael Jackson, I didn't ask who sampled Michael Jackson. I said, who hasn't sampled Michael Jackson? Right? So, and this is a picture of him in 1983. Looked a lot different, right? That's what he looked like. That's what he looked like at the time of the book. And I'm going to click on his music Bloodline so you can see who influenced him. So this is if you like an artist. So this is if you like an artist and you want to learn more, want to discover other artists that are like them. This one, and music Bloodline is connected to Spotify, so you could probably find it. So if you check out Michael Jackson's music Bloodline, okay, you can see these other artists who influenced him, like Diana Ross and Stevie Wonder and Frankie Lyman, and you could see these are people who have influenced Michael Jackson. So you can kind of think of this almost like the family tree of a musical artist. Okay? So now, who's ready to do some writing? Real quick. It'll be real easy and it'll be fun. I promise you. I promise you. Let's break out a piece of paper and a pencil or pen. You're gonna want to do this. You're gonna want to do this.
Can I use my phone?
Yes, you can use your phone. Totally use your phone. Anything you need to write. And you can get the database on your phone too. The website is what they call responsive, which means that it'll change to fit your screen no matter what size your screen is. So it will work on your phone. Okay, you ready? No? Here we go. While you're getting ready, I want to show you one last thing about the database. I want to see, I'm going to enter someone in here, and I want to see if you can tell me what needs to change. Okay? What's the problem? Okay. So before we get into the writing exercise, who can tell me what needs to change about this definition? This is for you. You're going to be able to take this home with you, so you don't have to write your name and date. Who can tell me what needs to change about this definition? I can read it out loud for you, sure. Okay, so the person is Afrika Bambaataa. And the definition says, one of the founding fathers of hip-hop culture, he quit the Black Spades Gang to create the Universal Zulu Nation, an international organization known for using hip-hop to promote social and political awareness. With his group, the Soul Sonic Force, Bambaataa recorded some of the most popular hip-hop hits ever, including Planet Rock and Looking for the Perfect Beat. There's a picture of him here. There's a music video for Planet Rock. There's his music Bloodline and his link to the Who sample database. Now, if you've been paying attention to the news, why is Afrika Bambaataa in the news? Right. So, Afrika Bambaataa recently has been accused by several men of sexually molesting them when they were boys. And he is someone that is mentioned several times in Show and Prove because he was such an iconic figure in hip-hop and in that time. So when this news broke, this was really, really troubling for me as someone who put him in the book as an icon. And I also struggled not only because I'm like, wow, a lot of young people are going to be reading this. They're going to be getting some things about not only history in general, but hip-hop history. And here is this person who was deemed a god in hip hop. And now we find out this god has clay feet. So what do? And it was particularly painful for me, not only as a writer who mentioned him in my book, but also because of someone who loves hip hop, and also because someone who works with young people and was disturbed by these allegations, and also because I happen to be from Soundview. I'm from the same community that he's from. I went to high school right across the street from the Bronx River Projects, where he's from. So I had to grapple with, what am I going to do now? Right? Because he's sort of put on a pedestal in my book. And now these allegations are coming forward. So I started to think, well, what would I have done, if anything, if when writing this book, this news had broken? And what I realized is that I would have told the truth. As painful as it is, I would have told the truth. Because hip-hop is just a microcosm of anything else in our society. One person, one thing can be at once, has this beauty and has this wonderful power, but can also have this shadow and this dark side. And it's important for us as storytellers to tell the whole truth. We shouldn't sanitize the truth, but we also shouldn't discard any of the beauty, because people are complex, and really good stories that stay with people should be complex. So if I had to write the scenes where I'm referring to Afrika and Bambaataa again, we don't, this is all still being under investigated. I personally believe the victims, but he hasn't been tried. He hasn't been convicted of anything. He's denying the allegations, despite decades of rumors that are now coming forth. So what I would have done, if I was rewriting those scenes again, Nike puts Bambaataa on a pedestal. And I would have him still put Bambaataa on a pedestal, because when I was coming up, I didn't know anything about those allegations. But then I would have a character like Smile say, yeah, but I've heard some rumors about him. And left it at that. Because that's all we know to be true. We just know that he's done some wonderful things, and we also know that there are people who have said that he's done some terrible things, and I feel that we need to discuss it all. Not disappear anything, not whitewash anything, but also not throw out the beauty and discard the power. So you ready to create some of your own powerful stuff? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to number your page 1 to 5, leave space, leave a couple of lines between the 1 to 5. Now, on line 5, halfway through the line, write 6. So they're on the same line. 5 and 6 are on the same line. Okay.
So you're setting up a blank list.
Right.
It's 1 through 5, with a few spaces between each line. And on line 5, halfway through, you're making a 6.
Right. So 5 and 6 are on the same line. And 5 and 6 also have an A. Give yourself a line or two, and then a B. Got that?
It's going to be tricky on your phone.
It might be tricky on your phone, but you'll be able to follow it. Okay? And now 7 through 10. 7, space, 8, 9, 10, under the 5. Okay. You can number as you go along. We're going to dive right in. Okay. Number 1. On line 1. I want you to create a real simple character. Give that person a name, an age, and a gender. Don't overthink it. Come with the first thing that comes to your mind. This is a freestyle. You don't want to overthink it. Go a name, an age, and a gender.
Yo, I need something to write on.
Okay?
Can I get something to write on?
Okay, number 2. Another character. Character, name, age, gender. On line number 2. Don't overthink it. Do it really quickly. 10, 15 seconds. Whatever comes to mind right away. You can always revise it later. Okay? Number 3. And there's a caveat to this, so don't dive in right away. What is the relationship between two characters? It can be anything except do not make them enemies.
So you can mention the two characters.
So on line 3, what is the relationship between character 1 and character 2? Make it anything, but do not make them enemies. There could be a parent-child, student-teacher, best friends, a couple, boss-worker, anything but enemies. Okay, here's now, number 4 is where you start to get inventive. Okay? Again, don't overthink it. You can always change it later if you want to, but don't overthink it right now. Number 4. What does character number 1 want from character number 2 that character number 2, let me finish, that character number 2 refuses to give? Character 1 wants something from character 2, but character 2 refuses to give this to that person. It could be one of a million things. Okay? Don't overthink it. Okay. Now we're at 5A. 5A. What does character 1 do to try to get what character 1 wants? 5A. What does the first character is the one who wants something. So what does that character do to try to get what they want? Character 1 wants something. Character 2 is like, nah. Right? So what does 5A, what does character 1 do to try to get what they want anyway? Okay? Six A is how character 2 blocks them. So 5A is what character 1 tries to do to get what that person wants, and 6A is what character 2 does to block them. What does character number 2 do to block the move in 5A? Right? In 5A, character 1 makes a move. In 6A, character 2 blocks. What is that block? What do they do? How do they stop them from getting what they want? Okay, 5B. Character 1's not going to give up that easily. So 5B, character 1's going to try something a little bit more desperate. What is that attempt? 5B. What is the next move? All right? What is the next move? It should be something a little more desperate. 5B. And if that's what 5B is, what is 6B? 6B is how character 2 blocks them again. Number 7. Number 7 is the last resort, desperate, ultimate move by character 1. This is their last resort attempt to get what they want. It's the ultimate move. What do they do to get what they want? And 8 is character 2 ultimate block. Right? So 7 should be the most desperate thing that character 1 can do. And 8 is character 2's attempt to block that most desperate move. Yes?
What if you want them to stop blocking?
Huh?
What if you want characters?
We're gonna get to that when let's go through the exercise. But flow with me. Flow with me. There's a reason to the rhyme, okay? Flow with me. Okay, after all that work, number 9 is simple. It's a simple yes or no answer. Does character 1 get what character 1 wants? Yes or no? Simple yes or no answer. Okay, that for yours it's no. It might be yes for someone else. So for yours, for number 9, no. It's that simple. Number 9 is, does character 1 succeed in getting what character 1 wants? After all these attempts and blocks.
What was 8? No, what's 8?
Okay, 10. You're at the end here. You're at the end. Here's the finish line. And then I'm going to explain what you just did. Number 10. What? Excuse me? Number 10. How has character 1 changed? Having gone through all this drama. Maybe not. Maybe, that's a good question. Maybe they didn't learn anything. Maybe they didn't change. That happens sometimes, right? A person can go through so much and still be the same person that they were at the beginning, right? Could be, could be. That's a viable option. Yes, it is. Okay, so what you have just done in these quick few minutes is churn out a very simple preliminary outline for a novel. You have the beginnings of a novel on your page right now, right? You have your main character, your protagonist. You have an antagonist, someone who gets in the way of what they want, right? Why do you think I made a point to tell you not to make them enemies? If the antagonist is the person who gets in the way of the protagonist's goal, why do you think I insisted that you not make them enemies? Why do you think I did that? Yes. Not because the story will be negative, but that's a good guess. Huh? Because maybe they might end up as enemies? You're circling it. What do you think it is?
If they were already enemies, the characters probably wouldn't want anything from each other because they wouldn't want to deal with each other.
That's a possibility. It's not the reason why I asked you to do that, but that is actually a possibility, yes.
The story can start off smooth and then turn into something.
You're getting to it. You're getting to it. Yes. She said if the story starts off smooth but then gets you're nearing it. Yes. You had your hand up. Did you want to? What's your guess?
Keep the characters close so that the story flows.
Say that one more time.
To keep the characters close so that the story flows.
Keep the characters close as the story folds. What's your guess?
So like a quick impression is going from the story. You start off with how it intends to end.
Right. Okay. So it's not like you can't have a good story without characters who are enemies. However, the best stories usually don't have that antagonistic a relationship from the top. Because think about it. Does your typical villain think they're a villain? No, your typical villain thinks they're just another person who just wants certain things and doesn't want certain things. It makes the characters more interesting, it makes the characters more complex, and it raises the stakes of the conflict in your story. If they are just two normal people with wants, with things that they desire, things that they don't want, that are in conflict, rather than automatically making them enemies. You can make them enemies, but the story's richer when they're not enemies. Because a person doesn't necessarily think of themselves as anyone's enemy. They just feel like, hey, there's certain things that I want, there's certain things I don't, and I'm just living my life. Those make for more interesting characters. Okay? So then you have 3 is the main character's goal. And what you have in the blocks is the escalating conflict. The attempt. You have a conflict, you have the attempt, then you have a block. You have the attempt, a block. And then when you have the ultimate attempt and the ultimate block, that's the climax. Right? Then you have the resolution. Does the character get what he or she wants? That's the resolution. So you keep going up, the conflict keeps getting thicker and thicker and thicker, and then boom, just something has to give, and someone has to lose. Or not. So the resolution is, does the character get what that person wants? Number 10, you don't need to have number 10 to have a good story, but I promise you, in the best books, in the best movies, in the best plays, number 10 is there. So you don't have to have number 10. Number 10 is the why the story matters. So 1 through 9, you can have a riveting story. Lots of fun, very entertaining, page turner, and meanwhile there's no bigger why to the story. That's okay, and you can have a great book. You can have a great book, but really excellent books that stand the test of time, excellent movies that you watch over and over again, plays that every time you see them you find something new, tend to have a number 10. Which is how the character, it's why the story matters. Why am I reading this? Why, now that I put this book away, I feel different than I did when I opened it. All the really great stories have point number 10. So you can have a good one without it, but if you want to be great, have a big why. And sometimes, like you said, maybe the character hasn't changed. And in more classical terms, they'll say, well, if a character hasn't gotten what they wanted and if they haven't grown from it, in classical terms, they'll say that's what makes a story a tragedy. Or, yes, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, I'm assuming the 3 ladies in the front who are not with us have read the book already?
No, they are from my school up, my middle school up in the Bronx.
Okay,
So-
so I don't want to blow anything up for you.
Yes.
But I want to ask a more specific question.
And I am ready for question and answers, so.
I'm under the impression that Nike and Smiles are having a conflict about their friendship. That Nike wants to maintain the friendship the way it was, and Smiles feels like he's growing away from Nike a bit. And I feel like from what you're outlining, the first attempt and block was to hang out on the 4th of July, and then Father takes him to the Yankee game instead. I'm just wondering, is that along the lines of the map that we just laid out?
What I do is when I start a story, I start with this to help me outline the story and figure out what are the major pieces. But as I write, I allow creativity to take over. I don't stick necessarily to the outline. The outline is a map. But you know, sometimes you take a map and you know to get from A to B, you can go this way. But sometimes you take detours because it's more colorful. It's more interesting.
What was your first block then for Nike and Smiles if on your map, even if it didn't wind up in the book?
I think it might have changed, which is why, because, you know, I did want it to escalate it to be more substantive. Because what makes for me the story rich and interesting, what I was going for, is that, you know, I could have written an outline for both of them because they see it differently. The way if you ask Smiles, this is what's going on, Nike's going to come along and say, no, that's not what's going on. What's going on is this, and this, and that. So I actually wrote multiple outlines for each character. I call them psychological plots. So this is like a very, it's very plot driven. It's because it's about events. A person does this, a person does that. But when I do a psychological subplot, I really look more into what the character, what they're dreaming, what their secret is, what their fears are, what are they struggling with. And then I try to tie it to the events. So what's really the emotion going on under the event? And I was driven more by that ultimately. So we've started with questions and answers. Who has a question for me about writing, about the book? Because now you got the outline for your own novel. Who thinks they're going to go back and tinker with this and try something? Okay, you're not stuck with this. You can go back and change it. All writing is rewriting. You can go back and say, okay, now that I know what this is, let me make block number 2 a little bit more interesting. Let me change the goal here. You can do that. That is your right as a writer. What's your question?
I was going to say, you said we didn't tinker with this. David, I already asked. This is something I pulled out earlier.
Okay, so this actually helped you with something that you've already been working on. That's awesome. That's great. Good. You found it helpful? A little bit? Okay, good. Yes.
What inspired you to write this book?
Okay, I was inspired to write this book by my own upbringing. I was coming of age when all these different things that I'm discussing in the book happened. And despite all the challenges that we were facing in the South Bronx, there was still a lot of vibrancy there. So yeah, the streets were dirty, the schools weren't good, there was police brutality and gangs, and there was crack. But at the same time, on my block, there was still a lot of joy, there was still a lot of friendship, there was still a lot of laughter, and I wanted to capture that because I think that's true of young people today, that despite whatever they might be facing, you have a lot of resilience. And you find a way, as Beyonce says, make lemonade out of lemons, right? So that you might be facing all these challenges, and yet you still find ways to be creative, find ways to be resilient, find ways to be powerful and expressive. And I wanted to honor that in writing. And I wanted, one of the themes of the story is how the more things change, the more they don't. So as you're reading this book, you're probably finding that there's some things, okay, I don't know what these concepts are, or I have to, freshen up on my history in terms of what she's talking about when she's saying Reaganomics or mentions a certain person. But I bet there's also certain things that are going on in the book in the 80s that you're still grappling with today. So I wanted to show how, even as time changed, there's certain things about adolescence that endure no matter how old you are. What's your question?
We was in class one day and we watched like a scene from this movie. I think it was called Beach Street. How did that inform you?
Beach Street came out at the time that I was living some of these experiences, and for me, I went back and I watched Beach Street again to help me jog my memory around the fashion, the places, the language. So Beach Street and Crush Groove and a lot of the music helped bring me back to that time so I could capture it again. Another thing that I did when I was researching this book was I went to the main library on 42nd Street and I actually looked at all the old newspapers of those times. I went, they have them on microfilm, and I'm there in front of the machine, and I am looking through the New York Times, the New York Post, and the New York Daily News, page by page for that summer. And I went into that thinking, okay, this is going to remind me of the big events, not only nationally, but also what happened in New York City, like the Diana Ross concert in Central Park. And you still have Summer Stage today. So now you know that and the fireworks, we still have the fireworks have moved, but we had the fireworks then. Now you have the fireworks at Chelsea Piers. Back then, you didn't want to be at Chelsea Piers. That was no place to be hanging out. So one thing I realized that I hadn't intended was that looking at the newspapers was rich with information. It wasn't just, I went looking at it for the events, for the political and economic and historic events. But then I started to realize, wait a minute, the TV guide is here. I can find out exactly what was on television at what time. I can look at the ads and see how much things cost and what was in style. So the newspapers actually turned out to be much richer source of information than I had even imagined. So that's a good question. Thank you. Yes, what's your question?
How did you get started? How did you publish and, get your book out there?
Okay, so the most important thing I can tell you, who here has aspirations of publishing? Okay, publishing raps. That's it. Okay, so it actually applies to raps. The most important thing that you need to do is finish. Sometimes I go to events and people say that they want to be a published author, and I'll tell them, so tell me where you are in your book, and they're like, well, I haven't started yet. I just got this idea. And of course you need ideas. But if you want to publish anything, whether it's with a publishing house, whether you publish it yourself through something like Amazon or Lulu, you have to finish it. Okay? You're a writer because you write. You're not any less of a writer because you've been published or not published. So all of you go to the Academy of Young Writers, you're writing, you already are writers. Publishing is not what makes you a writer, writing is what makes you a writer. All publishing does is make you a published author. But now with the technology, you can publish yourselves. You can get a blog, you could go on Amazon, create your own Kindle book. You don't have to wait for someone to put you on to become a published author. So it's okay to pursue that. If you want to write a book and send it to an editor or find yourself an agent and have an agent try to sell it to an editor, you should totally go for that. But you don't have to have your manuscript sitting on your laptop, never to be seen by anybody because a publisher doesn't want it. You can always put your work out there yourself. And I encourage you to do that. Any other questions? Yes? I absolutely do. This Show and Prove is my 6th novel. It's my 2nd for young people, but it's my 6th book. And I'm looking forward to writing more. I've also written for adults. Not too long ago, someone compared my first novel to Empire because it was about 2 women MCs trying to make it in the industry. They were a rhyme duo. And then a really shady record label comes between them. They're partners, they're the best of friends. And this mogul comes and signs one but not the other. So then they become rivals. And then you find out that the label is not what you think it is. That was my very, very first novel, and it was for adults. So I'm looking forward to continuing to write things like that. I wrote a book about a girl who believes Tupac Shakur is still alive. Who believes Tupac's still alive? Yeah, he's in Cuba. He's in Cuba cutting records. He's gonna surprise you. I see some questions back here. Yes. Do you have a question? Yes. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. About the 2 MCs, it's called Explicit Content. It's called Explicit Content because that's the name of the record label in the story. It's kind of a play on the parental advisory label. Called Picture Me Rolling, and if you're a Tupac fan, you recognize that song. Yeah, exactly. Right? It was like his first hit when he was released out of prison. Any other questions? Yes.
Could you please tell us how the Ding Dong song actually goes? Because I've mashed it apart.
Okay, listen, can you, this is funny. I will do that. Can you just remind me what page it's on? Do you have your books in front of you? Hope you have your books because I'm here to sign them. Okay. Okay, here we go. I think some of you know it. Okay, here we go. So here's how the Ding Dong song goes. I'm going to sing it the way it's supposed to be sung, and then I'm going to sing it the way that Stevie sings it because, you know, he's a little character. He likes to clown around a lot. You have a question before? It's page 90. So you ready? All right. A ding dong, 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 a ding dong, 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 a ding dong. Your mama don't wear no drawers, a ding dong. I saw when she took them off, a ding dong. She threw them in the sky, a ding dong. Superman refused to fly, a ding dong, 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 a ding dong, 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 a ding dong. Okay, this is what you call call and response, just like in hip hop, right? Someone says something and you answer back, a ding dong. And then Stevie, because he's a clown, he goes, and Stevie was inspired by someone who used to sing ding dong like this. He used to crack us up. Ding dong dong ding dong, ding dong dong ding dong, ding dong dong ding dong, a ding dong. Your mama don't wear no drawers, a ding dong. She took them off, ding dong. She hung them on the line, ding dong. The sun refused to shine. So that's how Stevie sings it. He likes to pick it up. Any other questions? I never thought I was going to get a question about the Ding Dong song, but I'm happy to oblige. Any more questions about the book, about writing, about me? Yes?
At what age did you publish your novel?
At what age I published, whoops, excuse me, at what age I published my first novel? I was it's interesting because I was writing a lot when I was a kid, and I think I stopped writing about the time I was 16, 17 because I went to college, and I was really focused on my schoolwork. But at the time, again, I didn't think that writing was a career that I could have. Knowing then what I know now, I would have majored in English. I didn't major in English. But now, so that's why I'm glad that you all are discovering writing and chose the high school that you did, and I hope that you pursue it and don't wait as long as I did to write. I was 27, I believe. No, 20, yeah, let me check. No. When I was first published, no, I wasn't 27, I was older than that. I was first published in 2003, and I'm 46 now. Hey, black don't crack, beige don't age. Brown don't frown. So how long ago was that? That was 2000, that's 13 years ago? 13 years ago? So, okay, let's do the math. I was 33, okay. But take from that there are a lot of paths to publishing. You can major in English, you cannot major in English. You can get an MFA. I got my MFA after publishing 5 books. An MFA is a Master's in Fine Arts, and my MFA is from LIU in actually writing and producing television. But I published before I got my MFA. You can publish as young as you are right now. If anybody here who's older and aspires to be published and not published, it's not too late for you. So there's no timeline on getting published. And again, with the technology being what it is, you can publish yourself. You can put yourself on. Good. Thank you. You just hearing you say that is my gift for the day. So thank you. Thank you.
You got money to do that?
I did get paid to write. Yes, you can get paid to write. You can get paid to write. Not everybody is wealthy from writing, but we don't write to make money. We write because we want to tell stories. When you do get paid, it's icing on the cake. But you write because you have a story inside you that you want to share with people that you hope will move them. So writing has to be its own reward. You might get paid, you might get famous, but writing has to be its own reward. You have to write. One mic, please. You have to write because the story that's inside of you is a story that only you can tell. And that if you don't tell it, that story dies and disappears and is not out there for anyone. So any ideas that you have, even if they've been inspired by other places, there's a saying that there's no original ideas, there's just original ways of telling the story. So if you have something in you, whether it's a book or a poem, a play, music, art, if you have something in you, get it out, because that's something that's in you is supposed to live and it's supposed to be in the world for people to have and to enjoy. And if you don't do it, it will never exist because it came to you because it's your purpose to create that into the world. We ready to sign? We're ready to sign books? All right, thank you. You guys are great.